call the honourable member Ian Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Can I say it's not easy. It is not easy to follow a great orator, the likes of the Honourable Parakura Horomia, but I'll give it my very best shot. I have to say that Mr. Horomia actually showed exactly what this bill is all about, which is the bringing together of science and the humanities with the poetry with which he described some of the environmental challenges that we face with the degradation of our rivers in this country. Because, of course, there is a lot of science involved in monitoring our rivers, the nitrate levels that we might have in our rivers and the other things that we might find in our rivers. But could we have heard them more poetically described than we did by the Honourable Parakura Horomia this evening? Mr. Chair, I want to say that I fully support what other members have been saying tonight, and that I support this bill. As someone who has taken papers in diverse subjects as biochemistry and the history of New Zealand politics and inorganic chemistry and English language papers, I have great interest in this coming together of the humanities and science. But although there seems to be, and Mr. Peachy pointed this out, that there is a pretty uniform agreement around the House on this bill, I'm not sure that the same can be said from members of the Royal Society itself and perhaps some of the practitioners of science out there in New Zealand. This was borne out, I think, in some of the submissions at Select Committee. And so I wonder if the member in charge of the bill might be able to address some of these issues. Because when I first looked at this bill, I reflected on a number of the meetings that I've had with Royal Society members in Palmerston North, many of whom are involved with Massey University, and on a number of occasions I have heard those members lament the fact that, in their opinion, not enough young people in New Zealand these days are engaging with the sciences. Not enough young people feel so connected to the sciences through their time at secondary school that they wish to continue on with a career of studying science and technology at university, maybe go on to undertake some research in science and technology, and in fact lamenting the fact that too many young people were perhaps being taken off to the humanities and studying subjects like English and French and geography and subjects like that. And so I wondered just how much support there is out there amongst the rank and file members of the Royal Society for this bill. And in fact, my concern about that, I think, is borne out in some of the submissions that the Select Committee heard. And I have to admit, I come to this debate rather belatedly. This is the first opportunity I've had to partake in the debate. But looking at some of the submissions, I noted that some submitters said the exact definition of humanities is difficult to define, and in fact that humanities is vague as a term. And I know we will come to this later on under Clause 5, but there is a definition of the humanities, but that seems rather limited, the definition in the bill, and I wonder whether it is in fact too limited, because I think some of these submitters are right. The humanities is a little bit difficult to define, and I wonder if the member in the chair has some reflections on that. And in fact, there was even a submission that said that there's no need to change the Act currently because the Royal Society of New Zealand can be interpreted to include humanities fellows. So, obviously there is some concern out there, I think, amongst the science fraternity that this bill in some ways waters down what they do, and that, perhaps, although the Royal Society actually proposed this bill and asked the member to bring it to the House, I wonder about the process that they use to engage with their members, and I'm sure other members who are on the Select Committee might be able to discuss that, because of course this is central to the purpose of the bill. This is Clause 4A, to incorporate the humanities into the object and functions of the Royal Society of New Zealand. Now, David Shearer actually reflected on the submission of Dr. Bob Brocky, and he made comments, in fact, that science and the humanities were incompatible.
I call the honourable member Carol